The doorkeeper sees that the man is nearing his end. And in order to reach his falling hearing, he roars at him. No one else could gain admission here, because the entrance was meant solely for you. I'm going to shut it now. If I were looking for the essential parable or the essential joke in modern times, we could do worse than this parable written by Franz Kafka in December 1914. It has the sharp flavor of modernity, a bitter, ironic essence. We call it Kafkaesque. For what could be more Kafkaesque than to spend your whole life standing before the law with its spiritual light gleaming, just to learn when it's too late that the gate you've come to was designed to shut on you? Whatever law represents, the truth, the Torah, God, or your highest aspiration, the spiritual journey of the man from the country ends with an abrupt joke. For some, this joke seems too bitter to offer spiritual nourishment. Instead, it represents the absolute futility of the quest. For them, before the law is a parable for nihilists. Others detect traces of redemption. The Sholem, Gresham Sholem, the parable, points to the borderland between faith and doubt, and giving us a glimpse of the inextinguishable light streaming from the law. Sholem says the parable condenses the yearning of the Jewish soul for 5,000 years. That's a lot of yearning. So which is it? Is Kafka describing a dark land of nihilism or the hope of the gleaming light? The futility of any spiritual quest or the inextinguishable yearning of the soul? Certainly the parable is rooted in a profound experience of standing outside the gate, a profound experience of futility and despair. There's no question about it. Kafka felt this feeling and defined it for the whole world. As he wrote in his diary, I am divided from all things by a hollow space. Kafka never felt certain of who he was, and once in describing himself and trying to decide whether he was a German or Jewish writer, he said he was like an insect with his feet glued to the floor and his antenna waving. And this can't help but remind us of the Metamorphosis, his most famous story, which begins, Rodger Kamenetz woke from uneasy dreams one morning to find himself changed into a giant Ungeziefer. I once taught a community college course, and Ungeziefer had been translated quite properly, actually, as vermin, which is really what the German means. And I kept getting essays from the students. It's actually the first class I ever taught. Boy, I was crazy, teaching Kafka and Socrates. I learned. But now, at the end of my career, I started teaching common core. No, I didn't. I kept getting papers about how, the turtle had all these problems and he was on the shut. They thought vermin meant turtle, right? Not just one student, many students. Now, Ungeziefer is quite an interesting word in German. I think one context in which Kafka heard it, and I can only give you a glimpse of some of the tensions going on in Prague and other cities where, especially Prague, which was really in Central Europe, and which was beginning to feel the impact of Yiddish-speaking, unassimilated, Hasidic Jews starting to show up as they fled, trying to come west. And of course, the people who had raised themselves up through assimilation were horrified by these shaggy Jews with their weird customs and their lack of a clean-cut appearance. Very much the same thing happened in the United States and in other parts of Europe. One day, Kafka, trying to find his Jewish roots, he'd taken up with it. He fell in love with a Yiddish actress, but then he started taking up with a Yiddish actor from Warsaw named Yitzhak Lowy, and he brought Lowy to his home. Now, Kafka lived at home till in his 30s. He had to live under his parents' supervision. This is already a nightmare. And His father, Hermann, who was a very irritable guy, called Yitzhak an Ungezeifer, a vermin. So that word resonates in the story, right? It has a certain meaning. It gives you a certain reading of that story. This man is transformed into an Ungezeifer. By the way, not a cockroach. If you read the description, definitely not a cockroach. No entomologist would mistake that insect for a cockroach. Ungezeifer has a very sad resonance as well. It's the term the Nazis used for Jews in concentration camps. How can we read Kafka after the Holocaust without reading that into the story? What is the story? Gregor Samsa works as a traveling salesman. He's the sole support of his parents and his sister. In addition, his father owes a debt to his employer, further binding him to his job. He wakes as an insect with many legs and a large domed belly, which is not what a cockroach looks like last time I saw one. Hermann's curse has become Gregor Samsa's reality, though Kafka never explains the mechanisms of this transformation. The Verwandlung, which is what the story is called, Verwandlung. Simply, a man wakes as an insect. This is the mashal with which we're presented, but the nimshal is elusive. It's like a dream. A single absurd premise begins the story, but after that, the rest follows quite logically. In other words, Kafka gives us the dream, but we interpret it. Thousands upon thousands of books and essays have been written about this story. By the way, in research's bibliography, I estimated over, I think it was a 17-year period, there was a book somewhere in the world written about Kafka every 10 days. Must be time for a new one. Amazing. It's humbling. If you're a writer, you can appreciate what a 1,000-page bibliography looks like. Okay, so what do we understand of this story? Translators, Kafka has a strategy of evading interpretation, but translators have to make choices. So the first translators in English, a couple called the Mears, Scottish couple, you called it the Metamorphosis, perhaps drawing on Ovid. But I think the Latin poets' frolicking satyrs and nymphs are far removed from Kafka's worldview. The Yiddish translation brings us closer. The Yiddish poet Melech Ravitch translated the title as Der Gilgul. Gilgul is a concept Kafka was quite aware of from his teaching and reading and notes in his diary. A minor tradition in Jewish thought, until the time of Rabbi Isaac Luria in the 16th century, Gilgul is mainstream with Hasidim. The Hebrew word, it could be defined as a rollover, not an IRA rollover, but a cycle. Gilgul is a transmigration of the soul. Some lofty souls recycle to complete spiritual missions. Others come back for punishment. I heard a story about Rabbi Nachman and Rabbi Nathan, his amanuensis, walking through a Ukrainian village, and 3 dogs started barking at them. And Nachman said, in good Yiddish, "Yitvaisen, Yitvaisen, Yitvaisen. I know. What did he know? He knew who these souls were and how they had gotten trapped in dogs' bodies. And he would find a way to release them. Gilgul seems like a charming sort of fairy tale belief, but of souls constantly in motion, with every rock, every tree, every flower and bird full of conscious life. And we human beings can play our part. A simple act of blessing a piece of bread can lift the souls that are trapped in the grains of bread. And so Luria imagined every Jew playing a part in the grand scheme of redemption, the Tikkun Olam, the repair of the world. But Gilgul also covers some feeling of pathos, which is certainly the sense in this story. Human awareness trapped in non-human form. In Kafka's story, Samsa has full human consciousness in a bug's body, but gradually forgets his human nature. He succumbs, or perhaps the pain is too much, and perhaps he deliberately forgets his soul, his human soul, in that condition. Kafka wrote once, "The best hope for felicity, for happiness, is to believe in the indestructible in oneself, but not to go looking for it." Very interesting. Obviously, the indestructible was another term for the soul. I think he was wrong. But his character, Rodger Kamenetz, follows that advice. He remains unconscious, which is where the humor of the story comes in. When he first wakes, his thoughts turn from his wriggling legs to his train schedule. He worries more about being late for work than about being an insect. He's lost to his basic feelings. How can they act as messengers to a king? He's so asleep to who he truly is, he might as well be an insect. Read through Rabbi Nachman's eyes, there's only one hope for Rodger Kamenetz, a Rebbe. Of course, a Rebbe would recommend a Rebbe. So. Only a Rebbe could free his soul from his insect body. Rabbi Nachman's parable, The Turkey Prince, depicts the same situation. Once a king's son went mad. He thought he was a turkey. He felt compelled to sit under the table without any clothes on, pulling at bits of bread and bones like a turkey. No doctor could do anything. They gave up. The king was sad until a wise man came and said, "I can cure him." What did he do? He took off all his clothes. He sat naked under the table next to the king's son, and he also pulled at crumbs and bones. The prince said, "Who are you? And what are you doing here?" "And what are you doing here?" replied the wise man. "I'm a turkey," said the prince. "I'm a turkey too," said the wise man. They sat together like this for a long time, until they got used to one another. Then the wise man gave a sign. They threw down some shirts. The wise man said to the king's son, "Do you think a turkey can't wear a shirt? A turkey can wear a shirt." So they put on shirts. After a while, he gave another sign. They threw down some trousers. "Do you think if you wear trousers, you can't be a turkey? You can wear trousers." So they put on trousers. One by one, they put on the rest of their clothes. Afterwards, the wise man gave a sign, and they put down human food from the table. The wise man said, "Do you think that if you eat good food, you can't be a turkey anymore? You can eat this food and still be a turkey." So they ate. Then he said, "Do you think a turkey has to sit under the table? You can be a turkey and sit up at the table." That's how the wise man dealt with the prince, until in the end, he cured him completely. Such a moving story. A moving story about how we have to reach people to help them. How we have to feel their pain with our pain, which is true compassion. You can't help them from above the table. You have to descend and go below where he is.